Well, that's going to put everybody in a micromanaging position of the police chief's duties. I mean, I'm really not a law officer to know what those duties should exactly be. He went to a school to be trained for those purposes, and I am not trained to make a judgment call based on if somebody pulls my son or daughter over and makes a ticket, then he has to come here and be subjected to something by a council member who had a child that was speeding through town.
The city council are make the final decision as far as hiring the police officers, so that it needs to be added that he's acting subject to the city council.
Ms. Jordan, I might be the one to clarify this for you. This came up a couple of years ago, and instead of micromanaging every department in this city, we made a determination to let the head of that department manage that. And then we, as the council, have the opportunity to suggest things to the chief of the fire department or the police department or any other department to correct anything we think he's doing wrong. So it's not the officer.
That for a moment.
It's not
only a majority.
Just a minute. It's not the officer that we're going after. The only thing we could go after is the head of that department. He has the right to dictate to that officer. Now, if we see that we don't, if we see that he is directing that officer incorrectly, then we don't address the officer. We address his department because he's chief of it, the chief of that department. You see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing.
You shouldn't have a problem with adding that, acting subject to.
Well, that's already, we've already.
Why don't we just do a yea or nay when we come back around the second time after we do?
I think that the chief could be disciplined at any time you found fault in what he's doing with one of his officers. I think that's just a given. I think it would be redundant to add that clause in there.
Well, you know, personally, you said that about the police chief or whatever, him being, we can't even get a report from him. I mean, we can't get a report because of our website. I mean, he won't give us a report what's going on. How are you going to be able to talk to him about problems with his employees? Do you think he's going to speak to me about that?
I think he was concerned at that point about the privacy of his officers and so forth.
Is that an issue? I mean,
But,
that's not an issue, is it?
It's not an issue at all, and he's doing his job, so.
Can we just do a yea or nay on what she's going to add when we come back around the second time?
I say no because I think it's done.
I understand that, but you'll have a vote whether we add it or not.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, my opinion is no.
Okay, well, all right, we'll get to that.
Okay.
We're on Article 3, folks.
Does Potter have a contract now, an existing
No.
contract?
He has nothing. He doesn't have any unemployment insurance. He has nothing.
Any questions on Article 3?
Yes, I do. Let me reread it a minute.
You know, in fact, John, you know, I was just thinking when the mayor was discussing the amount of time that Officer Potter spends with the city, and I know this to be a fact, and kind of it's not really humorous, but the other day I was watching Fox News, and they were discussing something about a poverty level, and when the guy made the yearly amount, stating the poverty level, it appeared on the screen in these big numbers, and it was actually $500 difference from Potter's salary.
Noted.
It was $500 difference from Potter's salary was the poverty level, and I hate to say that, but I mean that ought to be enough said about that.
Let me make one more statement right quick. I understand y'all going through this, and some of you act like you got items on your agenda. This thing has been looked at by a lawyer. It has been graced by a lawyer. Why are we going through all this? The lawyer said, and he's got a legal degree, he said it was fine. And there might be some terms here you don't understand or whatever, but he has sent it back to me, and he said that it is fine the way it was. I think we reworded, what, 2 things? Where's Shalina? 2 things? Was it 2 or 3?
It was a couple.
So I'm saying if the lawyer says fine,
The lawyer is saying fine from a legal point of view.
Right.
We are looking at it from a city's point of view and what the city wants to have for its police officers.
but I'm going to tell you right now, if you keep going through this contract, tearing it up, doing this, doing that, Potter's going to walk. Tell you that now.
I think we're going to get through it.
All right, go ahead.
Let's see. We're on Article 3.
Yes, I do. at the very end of the clause, it says the conflict between this agreement and the city police department's policy manual, this agreement shall prevail. In other words, what this says takes lead or precedent over the police department's own manual. Does that seem right to you, that we should do that?
What, it's a part.
We're at the very end of the very end of section 1, the last sentence. In the event of a conflict between this agreement and the city and police department's policy manual, this agreement shall prevail. I think the city's manual should prevail, or the police department's manual should prevail, not this agreement.
Most things go by whichever is the newest. Our department is on whichever is the newest.
Just like
Well, but to me, that's not the same thing, because you have a police.
we don't have time to
Then just
dissect the manual.
update.
We don't have time to dissect the manual.
Well, then let's agree with the manual that we have.
Well,
What's wrong with the
I
manual
need
that
to-
we have in
Y'all,
place?
can we come back around a second time and yay or nay, we'll keep it or not, please? I'm just trying to speed this thing up. I'm like Mike, I don't want to be here at 10 o'clock.
Do you see anything that's already outlined in this that's in
Y'all got about-
conflict with the
y'all got
manual?
about
Just
15
give me an
minutes before I
example.
take it.
I don't know,
See,
but I.
that's why. We cannot read the Bible in front of everybody here tonight to make sure we're not conflicting with the Bible.
So let's not put it in there. Let's leave it out so it is not an
Can
issue.
we do a vote on it later and say yay or nay, please?
It's just answering it. Okay, on section 4, I have
So
another
much love in this room.
area. City agrees not to reduce the number of police officers, 2 full-time, 1 part-time, presently assigned to the department for the duration of this agreement. So now we have an officer going to dictate to the city and to its own police department how many employees it can have.
Well, I think that that's a reasonable request, because you've added an entire subdivision into the city. So we were going along with 3 officers, and we're still using 3 officers, even though we've quadrupled the size of the city. So I don't think that's an unusual request.
Well, I think it's a very unusual request for it. To me,
You meaning you want to add some, or just
To
leave it
me, I
at
want to
3?
leave it out. I want to say, leave section 4 out altogether. I don't
And
think.
why would you want to do that?
Why is he going to tell the city
No, I mean,
how many
seriously,
employees?
why would you want the option to reduce the amount of police officers?
I don't want the option to reduce it. I
But
don't
that's what
want
you would
this.
be doing.
I don't want.
Because you could certainly hire more police officers.
May I answer your
But if
question?
you take that clause out, you would be able to reduce the size of the police force.
Absolutely.
In a
Well,
lot
then I don't
Absolutely.
agree with that.
the size
You
of the
could get rid
police.
of the police department like that website he's talking about doing.
Well, I don't-
Or we could
I
add
don't agree
10
with
more,
that.
or we could add 10 more if we wanted
You
to.
could add 10
But
more, but
that's
I
up
don't,
to the
I
city.
totally disagree with you wanting to reduce the size of the police department, so we might as well move on, but I'm not
But
going to.
why does that need to be in his contract?
Because I am not in favor of reducing the size of the police department.
That has nothing to do with his
Increasing
contract.
it, yes. Well, I just disagree with that.
Means something to him.
I'm sure it means something to him for safety reasons. I mean, I've been married to policemen before. I understand.
So what's the
You know,
problem?
the issue. The problem is, I don't like an employee dictating the employer
His safety.
how to run the city. Do you not think that the city's going to look out for his safety?
Who's saying?
The employee's safety. Whoever's contract that we're talking
Some
about.
popcorn out there in the hallway if y'all want some. I can go be up for a
We're
minute.
having-
Excuse me, I'm going to get a drink of water.
I don't know.
Move
I
on.
understand her complaint.
Move on.
Well,
I think the
From-
size of this police department will be dictated by the revenue that's gonna be coming in. That, I think that's gonna dictate whether we have 2
I thought we've
full-time
already
and 1
discussed about
part-time.
your self-sufficient.
Can we yay or nay this before we get back to it, please? Yes, you're about to say no or not, and move on.
we can do that.
Move on.
But my mind is made up on, I think as long as this city is existing, that this is probably insufficient, this is an insufficient amount of police officers. And so I'm not going to put a clause in there or reduce this to where they can be eliminated for any reason.
Okay.
Unless it's, like it says back here, for a just
I
cause.
have no problem with this clause.
Okay, let's move on.
Because as you say, it's-
Come on, Pam, we're on Article 4. We want to rush through this and then we're going to vote on it.
It's gonna be a hell of a road.
Everybody's had this to read, so.
I know, but we haven't been able to
Okay, well,
discuss it.
we're doing it. We're
Okay.
doing it.
Article
Next-
4,
next one,
insurance benefits.
Okay, section 1, medical health insurance. City agrees that officers' present insurance coverage or the equal to will remain in effect for the term of this agreement and will be provided by the city at no cost to the officer. We're doing that, so I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Good.
City agrees that there will be no reduction in benefits during the term of this agreement. I don't know. I can take or leave that. I personally don't think that needs to be in there, because if the city gets into a jam, and which we know we're heading toward a jam, I don't think benefits is gonna be something that maybe we need to guarantee.
Well, you couldn't guarantee it if the city was dissolved for some reason. How could you guarantee it? You wouldn't be.
The revenue is cut in
It pretty much
half.
take care of itself, right?
No, I don't agree.
Would you like that, would you like
So
that,
that's
agree with
done
that at all.
somewhere.
would you like to ask some clarification if the city becomes default?
Let me ask y'all something. I see a little pattern here. Do y'all want to agree on this the way it is? And are you just going to vote it anyway, and there's no point of us discussing it, or?
Oh, we're interested in your comments, but so far I
Because I
haven't
don't
agreed
want to
with
waste
too many
time
of them.
either, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Well, go ahead to it, because I mean, I want to
I've
hear what
already
you.
made my mind up. I'm gonna pass it. I'm not gonna vote to pass it as it is. So,
I'm not either as it is.
Well,
You know, we're
We're not here to worry
going to
about-
change it, so.
Gentlemen, the three of us, have y'all seen anything since just make them a no-brainer then right now. Mayor, is there
No, I want to
anything,
go through and discuss it.
if their vote is no, but we already know their vote, is there any more ones to join them based on anything in this contract?
The only other thing I have a question about is this Article 11, Section 4.
I'd like to continue to go down the article.
It's not necessary if you're gonna vote no, you've already announced your vote.
You've already announced yours.
No, I have not,
So what
Mr.
are we
Ross,
arguing
please. Listen, I'm just trying
I'm
to be
not going
expeditious.
I'm not going to agree on it as written. That's why we're going to the article. If you can make some changes that are agreeable, then I'm happy to vote for it.
I think we've already passed that point. Article 11, Section 4, did you have anything, Mike, in between where we were in Article 11 that we need to discuss? We're trying to get a plural of a vote of 3. We already know we got 2 no votes. They've already announced that. Now, let's just work this out between the 3 of us, and if there's anything that we can agree on, we'll have a
No, that's not how
compromise.
the council meeting works, John. We
Well, you've
all
already made-
participate in the conversation, and there are lines in this agreement that I want to discuss.
For the purpose of just announcing a no vote.
For the purpose of trying to get it to something we can agree on.
All right, gentlemen, y'all want to try to hash through this? Or y'all want to listen to her questions, or do we need to continue how we are? Or what is your thought?
Is there any large discrepancies that you see as moving on? I mean, something that you just couldn't live with at all?
I mean, we're stalling on every word.
I highlighted the things I have a problem with. If we're going to go through it, I'll go through my questions.
Well, let me
Yes,
just
there is.
say this, John. In the overtime pay here, are
We
we
basically been getting that free.
free? But I'm just saying, how is that going to affect us in this here?
I wondered.
You know, in view of the thing that you showed me.
It
here.
says,
That's the only question I got about the whole thing.
in that part that you're discussing,
Where is
it says upon officer leaving city employment, city will pay officer for accumulated compensatory time at said calculated rate. Well, is there a thing in place, a manual or something that says how much overtime can be accrued? How much can the city afford to pay him? Are we going to pay him
I think it's under Article 7.
well, it's under Article 5 under overtime
I know
pay.
Article 7 talks about vacation time and accrual.
So Article 7 puts a limitation on that. Okay, accumulated vacation leave of 144
Well,
hours.
y'all gonna continue with it?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
We got about,
We got about 18 minutes.
Which article? It's in Article 7?
Article 7
About 10 minutes.
covers the vacation time.
What
accrual
section?
rate.
You can be able to do that.
I think that you're talking about that goes under Article 5.
How long has Potter been with the city?
About as long as I've been trying to know, maybe longer.
Do you know how long Potter's been with the city?
Ray didn't go
Ray,
back to
how long
the-
Potter been with?
2012. 4 or 5 years.
Hey, Brad, I want to ask you a question. One of the biggest hiccups on here is the overtime pay, and we were given kind of a look-see at the amount of overtime that he.
We do comp, we do the comp time.
Huh?
We do comp time.
Yeah, but I
That's
mean,
how we do it.
probably, I think one of the biggest hiccups in the contract would be whether he could stick us for overtime pay without any limitations, right? Is that what we're
That's
talking
true,
about?
yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, in Article
And
7 here, we don't,
vacation time as well. I mean, I think there should be a
well,
cap. to
well,
that.
vacation time has a cap.
Well, it's got 144 hours.
Right.
I think if he's not going to use his vacation time, I don't think he should accrue that to the point that he would just pay for it. I mean, he either uses it or
That's not really a policy with most companies.
upon his termination, 40 hours would be what he would be paid for if he had not used his vacation time.
Well, I don't know if that's a policy at all. Donna, with the post office, if you don't take your vacation pay and you want to retire early, can you take pay in lieu of the vacation time? Or are you just able to retire early?
You can do it either way.
Now you're talking to a federal employee as opposed to Coffee City employee. I'm talking about his contract, what the city, let's keep it in context
But
of
are
member
you
city.
highly concerned on 44 hours vacation pay? Or would you be more concerned with the accumulation of overtime at the rate that the mayor discussed? I think if we're.
Both. I'm not, don't give me an either or, I'm concerned with both.
I'm going with you.
Okay. Well, I may run with you on the overtime pay if that could be accumulated with no ceiling. But on the vacation pay, 144 hours does not bother me that bad.
Well, I'd like to see it changed to 40 hours if anybody would like to agree with that.
But what about the overtime?
Where does it mention overtime?
Well, I mean, wasn't
I
there
know.
an accumulation of overtime there we were talking about?
It said, it is agreed that no cap will be placed on
Where's Ray?
compensatory time and will continue to roll over and accumulate as needed.
Right.
But,
I said that on Article 5, I suggested that we have a max out of the comp time at 280. And at that point, he cannot accrue anymore. If not taken, it'll remain at 280.
The problem with the comp time is I give the officers, like if Potter gets called out tonight, he works 5 hours, I'll give him 5 hours off to use, next week. But the problem is with that is when that officer takes off, we just have that much more gap in coverage, where there's no coverage.
So instead of paying him extra time, you give him
And
time off.
in the past, what I've done, I always try to give the officer, we try to work it out where they don't accumulate an ungodly amount. But usually when they quit, we owe them at least about 2 weeks I try not to do over a month of pay, is what we try to keep the comp time down.
Ray, I think Mrs. Strauss, her concern is if he was terminated and then there was some way that his overtime could be calculated as $50,000 worth of overtime paid that he had not collected.
Ray just
We're
got to
doing the
explain
comp
that
time.
when you were
and-
talking.
Yeah, I know, apartments do this and everything else, but how?
And we keep it
need to kinda-
down. We try to keep it down as much as we can.
Yeah, I know. And I know a lot of places do this. My wife used to work like that.
Yeah,
But
no,
they would-
he don't have,
It's
50
a
to
compensated
80,000.
overtime is what you're
yeah,
saying.
and what I'm saying, he don't have that much time built up. He's got a lot of time built up, but, I try to I'll give him a week off here and try to get the reserves to come in and fill in while he's gone.
In other words, what you're saying, Police Chief, what these folks don't realize, because they're not here every day like I am, that we have a well-oiled machine. It's working. Y'all are throwing monkey wrenches into it right now. This damn thing is working. The police chief compensates his officers as he see fit. He puts them on as he see fit. We got a well-oiled machine right now, and y'all throwing a bunch of monkey wrenches in it, trying to be in charge of something.
Okay.
Like I said, in 9 years or 8 years, I haven't had an officer come back and say we owed him 10, 20, you know.
That's because you've never had a contract with one before. Now, when you have a contract with somebody that says you can, you're gonna
But
have
they
that
still
employee
can come
come
back
back
if
to
we,
you.
if the city offers compensation, comp time, and when they quit, they're still entitled to it.
Well,
But
then
like I
that's,
said, we keep it down.
well, if there's a cap on it or something, that needs to be in our manual.
Okay, but all I'm saying, if you
Let me-
You
put
know,
a cap.
sometimes you don't allow it, you know?
Okay, but I'm saying
And now,
if
here,
there's-
this brings me to another subject, because, you have a lot of reserve officers that
Wait,
don't
wait,
okay,
get
no,
paid.
and-
So
and
you
if I
could be
contract-
working those guys,
And
you
if you
know?
want to go there,
Ma'am.
when your husband told my officer he was stupid for coming out to work, that officer hadn't been back to work.
I don't even know if that's true.
That is true.
That is true.
Oh,
Right
well,
out
you
here,
know so because you were there.
the judge was saying.
So we get back to the contract, yes, y'all gonna take a vote, 1 to 2.
Okay, so.
Get back to the
what
contract,
do you
yes, I'm gonna call for a
suggest
damn
on
vote right now.
I'm suggesting there be a cap.
Okay, what do you suggest?
of
God,
40 hours.
this is-
You mean on overtime pay? Well,
Definitely.
Let me
on-
say it like this, In the event that he was legally terminated for a just cause, I mean, for a just cause,
Just
meaning
cause,
that he, you're saying that, now, if he was terminated for a just cause, we wouldn't know him anything. But I mean,
Yeah, you would.
well,
Yeah, you would.
why would you?
For their vacation.
Well, because he's accrued the time. I mean, he has it coming. Just-
That's what I'm saying.
He has
Okay.
it coming to
Okay,
him.
so having said that, yeah.
You
but-
see, that's why I'm saying there should be a
No,
cap.
that's what I'm saying. If he was terminated for a just cause, the only recourse he would have is coming, after he's went through a secondary judgment, then he would be terminated for a just cause. The only thing that he could be compensated for is the vacation and the overtime pay. Now, the vacation is set as 144 hours, but I don't know how they keep account of the overtime hours. I do know that he works an awful lot. So if you were to set a moratorium on there, you were saying 40 hours?
40 hours for the vacation time that's rolled over. And on overtime, do you have anything in a manual now that tells you how much overtime you think your budget allows us to have to work? And I know that you don't pay them because you give them
Yeah, we just do
time off.
Yeah.
But if we have a contract with him, then how much time do you think he needs for overtime worked?
I'd say, what's in the contract? What's down there, 280 hours?
Is it 280 hours?
Where does it say that?
I don't know, I'm just asking.
That's a figure that Darlene threw out. So
I was,
You know, I just think there needs to be a cap on that, and I would say,
where do you want to plug the 280 hours on?
Lee, what would you think would be a moratorium on as far as the amount of hours? What would you suggest on overtime?
How much overtime you accrue before you either cash in or get paid?
Yes.
I'd say 40 hours as well.
If he was fired for a just cause, because you'd still owe him the overtime. That is true, you would owe him the overtime and the vacation pay. What would you say?
Is the most he can accrue before he gets paid or takes it off? Is that correct?
In other words,
Should
he was
he-
fired for a just cause. In other words,
How much can he roll over year after year?
how much could he
and
say
walk
he
away
had
with?
on the books in overtime to collect?
Every company's different.
Well, no, I mean, you suggest here, because you
only have a
are one
two-year
that would set that moratorium, I mean, that cap.
Well, this contract's only for 2 years. If we did the 144 hours, that's about 3.5 weeks. If we did 280, we'd be looking at. almost
But
double that.
that's for vacation leave.
And we're only talking about a 2-year contract.
Yeah, but we're talking about vacation, 144 hours. Now, I have no problem one way or another with that, but I'm talking about the actual overtime pay.
Let me,
If he's
Right.
earned overtime, no matter what amount it is, he needs to get paid for it.
Ray, how many
Because if
times have we
don't
wrote
compensate
overtime
him,
checks?
he can
Never.
go,
They
Never.
don't, they don't, they give them time off.
we just do.
We
the
never
contract.
wrote an overtime check.
So what we're considering here is that if he resigns, if he quits, if he's fired, whatever, how much of the overtime pay can he accrue without being given?
You don't allow time to accrue, do you, Drake?
No, we try not to.
That's
It
right.
builds up, but like I said, we try to keep it down as much as we can.
I'm
For that
just saying,
very
if you're
reason.
gonna have a contract, you should put it in writing and have it said,
But
otherwise.
Pam, in your own words, you said
Okay,
that you would owe him the overtime. So the question is that you wouldn't be discussing how much overtime he could be paid for, because that's a given. He would have to be compensated entirely for his overtime. You're saying to set a cap on when he would have to take
How much
off.
you have to cash, how much you could cash out, if you had 120 hours, are we gonna pay him for 120 hours, or do we only want to pay him for 40 or 80 or 120?
Well, see, this is what I'm
Well, if he has
saying. This is
120,
what
I
I'm
guess we
saying.
have to pay him for
I
it.
know how we're doing this now, but let's just say he logged in
I think we still.
10,000 hours.
I think we would still up to one way or the other, because I'm telling you, I worked at Jones.
Well, then it
before.
should be up to the police department
It seems like
head
he
to
does, seems like he does a fine
be
job.
in
of-
control over
he's
and
already-
have something in his manual that kind of keeps that in
Right.
check or something.
I think sounds like he's doing a fine job. Can we move on?
I need to. We just about
Mayor,
at the
we
end.
have a vote pretty quick.
Just about at the end, just about tired of it.
We still on this file.
Is your actual revenue every month since then, since 2009, this was the 5 months this year.
Of overtime.
He's about 28% behind this year, what you were 5 months last year. And that was 5 up. They can pay 28% more than that, $128,000, whatever.
Hey, y'all.
So really, that's what we already tell them.
Yeah, because
You don't know what they say.
they're.
They don't have
I
it.
do a bunch of hard applications all day long.
Nobody
I'm
said it's
leaving.
gonna be.
I'm leaving at 8 o'clock. I'm tired of fighting this
But what I'm saying is, this
shit. I'm
seems to
tired of
be,
nitpicking this damn
this,
thing.
this is the biggest issue. So what are you all saying? You will owe the man overtime pay regardless. So,
If we owe it to him,
It's
we
in
pay
there,
him.
leave it in there, that's, if you wanna vote on that, let's just leave it in there, you vote.
Can I
on it,
interject
okay?
a statement on what y'all are talking about, the overtime and stuff like that? That's regulated through the Labor Management Board to the state of Texas. It don't matter what you put in there, it's gonna be guided by the state of Texas. So it doesn't matter what you put in that contract, the state of Texas determines on how and when a person gets paid on overtime. So y'all are wasting your time on that right there.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General.
You're very welcome. Well, I mean, that's
okay, is
right.
there any more serious issues on this, or?
Okay, we're on Article 5 right now. Is that the last of Article 5?
Keep going.
Article 6. Article 6. Anything you want to make a comment about? Article 7. Article 7. Are we on Article 8? You gonna let the man attend a funeral? Article 9. Article 9.
Well, that's mandatory there.
Article 10. Do you see anything there we should not provide the officer?
Well, I don't think we need to give him guns and bullets. Nightstick like we got in England.
City tires does not supply gun, nor flags.
You want to count those.
Okay.
Yeah, there are some
Okay.
things the officer will supply for himself, you know, so.
The only thing that I've pointed out is the take-home patrol. I do not have a problem with that, so I do not want the residents to extend farther than 30 miles away from the city limits.
I agree. I would like that.
2
written
years,
in.
I don't think it's
And
But I'd like it written in.
I would like to.
okay, so where do we want to put that? Next to
Right there,
the
right there
take-home
next to the
vehicle?
car. Take-home vehicle, mileage not to exceed 30 miles. The furthest point is.
One way. 30
Now, y'all
miles.
make these changes, who's gonna do them?
We'll just pin it on a contract that we all
Well,
initial.
Is this in a,
Do
is
a
this
yay
Word
in the
process.
computer, word processing computer at the
No.
city?
Huh?
We do a yay and nay call on the front.
Okay.
So the biggest issues was the.
Not to exceed 30 miles.
Ask that for a moment.
It's
Only-
not-
only a
excuse me,
majority.
Just a minute. It's not the officer that we're going after. Only thing we could go after is the head of that department. He has the right to dictate to that officer. Now, if we see that we don't, if we see that he is directing that officer incorrectly, then we don't address the officer, we address his department because he's chief of it, the chief of that department. You see what I'm saying? So it's the same thing.
you shouldn't have a problem with adding that, acting
Well-
subject to.
Well, that's
Why don't we
already,
just
we've
do-
already.
Why don't we just do a yea or nay when we come back around the second time after we do it?
I think that the chief could be,
It needs to be added that he's acting subject to the city council.
Ms. Jordan, I might be the one to clarify this for you. This came up a couple of years ago, and instead of micromanaging every department in this city, we made a determination to let the head of that department manage that. And then we, as the council, have the opportunity to suggest things to the chief of the fire department or the police department or any other department to correct anything we think he's doing wrong. So
Well,
it's
let
not
me
disciplined at any time you found fault in what he's doing with one of his officers. I think that's just a given. I think it would be redundant to add that clause in there.
Well, you know, personally, you said that about the police chief or whatever, him being, we can't even get a report from him. I mean, we can't get a report because of our website. I mean, he won't give us a report
He
what's
knows
going
how
on.
it's being
How are you gonna be
bastardized.
able to talk to him about problems with his employees? Do you think he's gonna speak to
Well,
me about that?
I think he was,
Well, that's gonna put everybody in a micromanaging position of the police chief's duties. I mean, I'm really not a law officer to know what those duties should exactly be. He went to a school to be trained for those purposes, and I am not trained to make a judgment call based on if somebody pulls my son or daughter over and makes a ticket, then he has to come here and be subjected to something by a council member who had a child that was speeding through town.
The city council are make the final decision as far as hiring the police officers, so that they need.
concerned at that point about the privacy of his officers and so forth.
Is that an issue? I mean,
But I
that's
mean,
not an issue, is it?
It's
That's
not an issue at all, and he's doing his job, so
Can we just do a yea or nay on what she's wanting to add when we come back around the second
I
time?
say no because I think it's done.
I understand that, but you'll have,
So-
you'll have a vote whether we add it or not.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, my opinion is no.
Okay, well, all right, we'll get to that.
Okay.
We're on Article 3, folks.
Does Potter have a contract now, an existing
No.
contract?